So usually what happens with How I Got Over, which is a series that is really meant to talk about language around race and talk about different ways that we can examine and analyze and talk to each other and our families and our peers and so on and so forth about race. And it's broken down in 3 segments. The first is the headline news and how we sort of process that. The next is the work of the guest that is here, and then the third is a sort of Proustian questionnaire, I like to call, with a black reboot. But since we have truncated time, I'm gonna actually kind of go a little bit mishmash here and there. I mean, I wanted to start by talking about the Pepsi commercial, but.
Right, but already tomorrow, Emma Watson's gonna play.
I mean, do y'all know what we're talking about? Do y'all know what we're talking about?
Yes.
Right. Okay. The Pepsi commercial, co-opting this image, being so tone deaf to the struggle, and so on and so forth.
Right.
And, I mean, in your world, you know, what is the conversation? What does it sound like?
It just amazes me. So I work as a development executive in Hollywood. So that's my other job. And it is so incredibly frustrating to have to explain the same thing over and over and over and try to do a show about it so that maybe you understand that way, or try to be nice, or just storm the office.
Yeah.
And, right, the executives that are making these decisions are so blinded.
So in your work, like, I mean, I feel like one of the things I started to talk about on Twitter was maybe what we need to do is launch like a drop squad of like, we're black, you're not, LLC. You know what I'm saying? Like, so if you have an idea like this, run it
Call
by
us
us.
up.
And we will let you know for a fair fee.
Yes.
Because it happens all the time.
All the time. Well, here's the thing. That's actually what I'm hired to do. And it's still real. I mean, you know, there's a lot of pride in like, we hired this person to tell us how to do things differently, but then they don't listen.
Right. So that's the thing.
Exist, and there's still.
I mean, and that, of course, you could apply to all sorts of area of industry in terms of diversity, and okay, we hired you, so that's the end of that.
Exactly.
When in fact, what has to happen is a change of culture.
Yes.
Within the spaces. So
right. So they need to hire us, right? In
well, they need to hire us. Where they also need to let us tell them not just that's not going to fly, but also what's happening in this
space
right here is not okay.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. But so Pepsi went and pulled the commercial and apologized to Kendall.
Right.
Not to the people.
Right. And of course, most of the conversation around that now in Hollywood is also about the loss of the money. Right. So it's apologizing to her, and then, oh gosh, we lost so much money, which that's what speaks to them. So, okay. But hopefully you're learning from, you know, so many people told us that you couldn't open a movie with black leads, and now we have Get Out and we have Hidden Figures, and they can't tell us that anymore. Right. So even if they're going to insist on talking about the money, we have plentiful examples of why they need to make other choices now as well.
Don't you also think, though, I mean, the framework of this conversation is so much right now about Trump and the administration with a white supremacist agenda. And, you know, I wonder about these companies, these enormous companies like PepsiCo or whatever, what struggling to please. And then, you know, the headlines are pull the commercial due to a Twitter firestorm. You know, mostly the Twitter firestorm, black folks. Because black folks
Twitter,
own that space. So it's just so interesting. It's like a hopeful, not hopeful. Hopeful, not hopeful. And so, you know, I mean, in your relationship, in your family, like, what is the conversation?
So right in you know, the majority of my family members that I'm close to are Black. So the conversation is exactly this, which is frustration, also a great deal of kind of, we're just going to separate ourselves from this. Like, we're just going to create our spaces. We, you know, if you're kind of cool, you're invited to the cookout, right? Like, you know, we might invite you to things, but, you know, and I understand that completely. So I think that is part of the conversation with that piece of my family. And then there's my white family that is very fragile. You know, including my mom, who's a really a wonderful woman and my closest family member, I would say, besides my brother. But we're having to talk a lot about whiteness in our family and really understanding this hierarchy that was created and codified for permanency, right? Like, this is going to be how things are forever. And they're just having such a hard time with it because, as well as many of the people I work with in Hollywood, because they believe that they're doing everything right.
But insofar, and is Winston here?
No, he's not here tonight. Okay. Oh, yeah.
I just want to give him a big up because he's so lovely. But insofar as the white family members and the fragility and in terms of our kind of trajectory and closeness, you know, I was adopted into, those of you who follow me know this, that I was adopted into a white family. And, you know, my mom is really trying to get it together. She's really trying to get it together at 74, at 75, trying to check it out, you know, and have these conversations. These are folks who felt like they were on the right side.
Right.
And increasingly for our own personal journeys that we instigated and owned and came with agency, they were like, what?
Scares them.
Very scary because they thought they were on the right side of it.
Right.
And I do think that just in the last 10 years or so, there has been a whole kind of different level of embracing Blackness and Black ascension and you know, where we're at and what we're doing. I do want to talk about and you know, we're not gonna spend a ton of time talking about the fact that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon produced her show.
And we can get into it,
but because I have some famous friends too, and it's just like a pain in the ass when people just like sort of see you through the lens of a proxy to these famous people. But this anecdote I feel is too weird and too ironic and too like just I need to share it. So when Good Will Hunting came out in, I think, 1997-ish, I was a producer for the Charlie Rose Show at the time. I was writing books-ish, and I wrote an opinion piece about the fact that there were no Black people in Good Will Hunting.
Wow.
And how it kind of broke my heart, actually, because I had lived in Cambridge and Boston. I had actually moved to Boston to look for my Black birth father. And I know that that Good Will Hunting takes place in this very it doesn't take place, but it is about this southy part of Boston, which is very, very white. But most of it took place on the campus of MIT and Harvard Square and so on and so forth. So I was really kind of heartbroken by it, and I submitted it to the New York Times, and I got a lovely handwritten rejection note from Howell Raines. But ended up giving a talk at the teachers, Columbia College teachers.
What?
Yeah, about it. And then, you know, when I was watching the Oscars and they got this Oscar, these two young guys who were of that place, of our generation, and I just was heartbroken by it. All the while, mind you, this one is going to high school with them,
right,
hanging out with them, still no Black folks in their film. So I'm just wondering,
the ironies of Cambridge.
Yeah, but my question is, like, do you feel like there was an active erasure that happened, or that it just did not occur to them?
Well, gosh, I'll be frank, it didn't occur to me till just now. Okay. And I'm very, I mean, in the work that I do, I work closely with them, and we talk about things like the Great Wall and commentary on Project Greenlight and Right. I know. I mean, there really is why that line works and is true in the play is that it's this. Yeah, right. Because the irony of Cambridge and places like that is that on one hand, everybody can walk around feeling like they're doing it all right. Look at all these mixed babies we're making, and look at all the, and look at all, we love each other. But really, what was happening all the time in Cambridge, like in school systems, for example, is that the white parents were running everything, right? They were showing up, and the other parents were showing up too. The black parents and Haitian parents were showing up too, but the white parents were really ultimately making the decisions, even about like what the Kwanzaa celebration was going to look like, right? So right, so I rarely see this like full giving in to and giving and letting go of power. And that's, again, because in 1790 and prior, somebody said, you're going to have power randomly, right? Like randomly, this group of people randomly got chosen, and not random. I mean, it didn't continue.
Not so randomly.
But meaning like race genetically randomly, right? Because there's no such thing genetically. So it was for whatever reason, these probably because they were bad people at the time, but they decided this is going to be who's going to permanently be in power. And, I think white folks in Cambridge and liberal places like that just can't let go. They can't, and Hollywood.
I mean, it doesn't even have to be liberal places. I mean, clearly anywhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But the problem about liberal places is that they believe they do. They believe that they do let go.
So I'm asking you, do you feel like when Ben Affleck and Matt Damon made Good Will Hunting, they had any sense that it was completely white?
No.
I mean, I think there was one scene with a barbershop quartet.
Good Lord. No, I mean, I know that is obviously true of that film, but that's not even the one that I'm mad about that they made. You know what I'm saying?
What's the one you're mad about?
Oh, I'm mad about the Great Wall.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, I guess I can say now that it's not trying to make money anymore. I mean, I'm mad about the conversation around, the conversation that happened with Effie Brown in Project Greenlight, and they know that I'm mad. I say it publicly and we discuss it, and it's just like my white family, which is like, well, not all of them, but many of them really genuinely like want to do better. They really do. But power is a very attractive thing.
It's not just power; it's white power. And like
Absolute,
white power is like, I mean, it's like
also
the
invisible.
Best possible drug ever because there's no come down.
Yeah, right. Yes, right. Yeah, constantly, absolutely. White power. This is what I mean. Is that supremacy that was set into place, and for all these years, repeated. Even the best intentioned folks are just not gonna. This is so invisible to it that they even think they're doing things right, like the Pepsi commercial. Like we're gonna make it so that it looks like everybody's happy together just because they drink Pepsi.
They almost had us too.
So they had some. Look,
they almost had us. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw some black folks on Twitter like, wait, what exactly is the problem? Yeah, right. Yes, right.
That's
I mean,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
So you talk some about you talk a ton about mixed race and this image and identity, and it's interesting because I had a piece in the Sunday Review on the weekend.
Beautiful piece. Go read it
about my son who identifies as black and mixed because his dad is white, and how when I was growing up, as an adoptee in a white family in a white town, I labored over trying to tell and convince folks about my biracial identity. And then by the fourth or fifth, moment when white people put their racist stuff on me, whether it was calling me a nigger, whether it was following me around the store, whether it was touching my hair, whatever it was, I was like, fuck it. I am black. That's where I'm at. So it's interesting, though, to look at this idea of mixed racedness, the commercialization of this mixed racedness, the exotification of this mixed racedness. Of course, when my kid was small, everyone was like, oh, so beautiful. And I would say, it's really hard to fuck up the mixed kids. I know, it really is. But at the same time, it's like,
yeah, actually,
unsettling.
that commentary towards children is fucking up the mixed kids, because it's right.
Exactly.
Absolutely. And then we want to go and like purely just celebrate. I hear this a lot, like celebrate all that makes up who you are. Well, here's the thing, like actually there's nothing to be proud of in white identity. There are things to be proud of potentially. No, not just, there are things to be proud of being Irish.
This is what my husband said.
And you're immigrant.
And I wrote about it in the piece, right?
Yeah, there's not, but in white identity, if you understand how and why that was created, there is not one thing to be proud of in being just white.
I mean,
and in fact, there's a lot
white
to
people be lovely. You know what I mean? Like, be nice people. Have integrity. Fight for causes, be smart, whatever.
Right.
But in terms of, and I put this in the piece as well, as my husband, who is white of Italian descent, the anecdote that I used was that we had a white acquaintance say to us, as we encouraged our son to embrace his blackness, don't you feel like you're depriving him of his white side? Which was to suggest that there was something bigger and greater than the privilege that his whiteness allowed.
Right, and also that there's anywhere in the world where you can escape your white side. Like
exactly.
Where could my father searched for it? Right, like where could I go to escape constant messages of whiteness being the most beautiful and whiteness being the strongest and the most intelligent? All these where that.
But so that my son and Fanshen as well decides to decenter the whiteness, I think is critical and really kind of where we need to go in terms of future. We're running out of time, and so I want to do my Proust.
Yes.
It's my favorite part.
Except oh gosh.
All right.
This is the scary part.
It's not scary.
Okay,
it's not scary. It's fun. Who is the last Black author that you read?
Oh, I'm so glad to say this right now, because I've been trying to find ways to share the story of One Drop with younger people. So I've been thinking about a children's book, and I want to figure out how to make this something that, especially I think my niece and nephew, right? I want them to know this story, and especially the history around the census. So I'm like, how do I do this? And so I started learning about children's books and kind of looking things up and trying to learn. And I found this incredible author named Zetta Elliott. And the first book of hers I got is called Milo's Museum. I think it's called a picture book. I'm still learning all the correct terminology, right? But it's about this young Black girl who goes on a school trip to a museum, and she doesn't see herself, and she doesn't see her family. And so she goes home, and she's got a Black auntie who, I wish everybody could have like a Black auntie, like this Black auntie, right? Who
myself included.
Yes, yes, you can have my family.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and she makes the museum for herself. She makes a museum at her home, and she has her neighbors come over. And Zetta Elliott self-publishes. So she's just all around beautiful author that I love.
I love it. What Black historical figure resonates with you the most, and why?
Oh man. Oh yeah, right. Okay. I'm gonna go with Malcolm X. I would love for it to be a woman. But there's so much about his story that, and probably a lot of that is because I learned his story. I was fortunate to kind of have teachers and adults around me that told me that was an important story. I think the light-skinnedness, right? The understanding that somebody could come from the background that he comes from and look the way he does and still have the cojones to say what he did and lead us in ways that Martin Luther King Jr. was not doing. I
would say to all y'all, everybody knows, I would imagine who's here tonight knows who Malcolm X is, but if you have the opportunity to go to the public library or the Schomburg or whatever and listen to the archives of his speeches, it's pretty extraordinary. And just close your eyes and listen to his voice in your ear. It's like nothing I've ever experienced. When I was just fresh out of college, I did an internship at Blackside Productions. Blackside produced Eyes on the Prize. Yes. And worked on a documentary called Malcolm X Make It Plain, and I remember sitting in the basement listening to his speeches and just thinking how much I missed him, just his voice and the tenor and the movement and the courage. So I would encourage anybody to do that.
And the evolution too. I think it's important
Absolutely.
To know that you know you're strong in your convictions, and then you can learn things, and then you can do things differently, and you can and you stay strong in those convictions, but you also tweak and get better and
When was the last time you were in a social environment that was predominantly Black?
Not in Hollywood, but I was with my family a month ago in DC.
A month ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, it's been a month.
Who's your favorite Black woman artist?
Can I do?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because two women that were so integral to what I do with One Drop are Anna Devere Smith and Sarah Jones.
Of course.
I know. I'm like,
as a matter of fact, when I was telling folks about you today, I brought those two women up to say,
thank you. I studied their work and got to see both of them live, and they're incredible artists.
And then you get to ask me one question.
Okay, sorry. I'll pretend like, I can? Right now, I've been like wanting to ask you this. Are there moments, so you talked a little bit about where you got to that point where you were like, I'm Black, fuck it, I'm Black. But like, is there any specific moment? And do there continue to be moments where you feel challenged in that or question that even for yourself?
So, this is a longer story that may or may not get told. But I was adopted. I met my birth mother. I met my birth father. My birth mother and I, she's white, and I had a very difficult, interesting, bizarre, wrought relationship. And at one point, when I was in my late 20s, she said to me, she overheard me talking to somebody else and saying, yeah, I'm Black. And she said to me, you can't call yourself Black. Any child that comes out of my body cannot call themselves Black. She erased my Blackness because she was my white mother. That was the moment where I felt like, you know what? Actually, I can. And I will. And of course, all of the previously painful, bizarre stuff that had happened in our relationship became crystal clear to me. But that was definitely the moment where I was like, no, you can't erase that. And it's interesting. I don't know if you all watch Blackish. As I resort to pop culture. But there was a wonderful episode about Bo trying to figure out her Blackness and her white dad, played by Bo Bridges. He was like, of course you're Black. Yes. You're a Black woman in this world. And I think that is such a gift and such the way if you are a white parent of a mixed race or a Black identifying child. And my husband is the same as a white dad. He's like, of course you're a Black kid. You're mixed and Black, but you identify it as how you want to identify. So
I always think of that as affirmative action in the home, right? So for real, like, my mom was really good about that too, like around aesthetics, because that is really, like, that's very problematic for mixed kids, right? Is this whole like, oh, you're so beautiful. And she would, anytime anyone, and then she'd veer us off to, no, this is what beautiful looks like. And, you know, she would find
so
real important.
So critical.
Real critical, yeah.
Fanshen.
We didn't even tell them that we're really sisters.
Actually separated.
Did we tell them we were? Yes, we were. No. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you all so much.